Hi everybody, it's Andrew Burke from Code School Halifax again, and last time we went out and got information from the internet and brought it down to our page, but we just looked at it in the console. We didn't actually do anything with it. Well, today we're going to start doing things. We're going to show you how to go through this information with JavaScript and also how to write some of that information out onto our web page. So we're actually going to be doing useful things today for the people looking at our page. All right, hang on tight. Here we go. Now here is our web page that we've been working with for a while. It's got a bunch of these placeholders we put in. We're going to start filling up some of these placeholders with some real information now. We also got the console open because we're going to be spending a bunch of time in there as well. Now here we have our HTML in one panel and our JavaScript in the other. We're mostly going to be working with JavaScript today, so I'm going to make this a little bigger. And in fact, we're not going to be using CSS much at all for the next little bit, so I'm just going to get it out of the way. This means we can get a bit more space for our JavaScript and maybe slide over to see more of the page as we're going. So that's kind of handy. Now, what we did last time is we got our feed from the internet and then got its data, and then just write the data and then call this writing results, which doesn't really do anything yet much. Okay. Now that works okay. Let's see where that happens. Okay. It says writing results and that's it. But up here you can see we have our big object that we've got off the internet. And that is a list of countries and a date, which is the timestamp on when this was actually captured. And each of these objects in this array is a country entry, which has a bunch of these values that let you see what's going on. Okay. Now let's see if we can get actually writing the results in the writing results thing. So instead of console log data here, because this should just be what we do when we get our data, I want to actually write things out. And to do that, we're going to want to have something to write, because this doesn't know what's going on up here, because each of these are sort of standalone little pieces. So we need to pass the appropriate data in to our function, so it has something to work with, because each thing sort of stands on its own and shouldn't really be dealing with things that are declared elsewhere or anything. So we need to pass it a bunch of data. Now, we could pass it just the regular data, but the thing with this is we just want the countries list. We don't really need the extra thing. So why don't we just get data countries, and then we can go countries list, and then let's just output, instead of writing results, say countries list. Okay. So let's see what happens here if we reload the page. And now line 13, which is right there, is just an array of our various objects. Okay. Now it'd be great to be able to go through this array without having to manually pick out each one. I mean, you could imagine going, okay, country 0, okay, do a bunch of things and then copy paste country 1, do the same bunch of things, copy paste country 2, copy, et cetera, 200 and something times, 224 times. That would be boring and kind of pointless. But what's great is software, programming languages, JavaScript, let you do this efficiently by actually going through a list like this. This is known as a loop, and you basically go through and do things for every item on the list. And to do that, there's various ways to do that, but in this case, we're going to use the fairly straightforward JavaScript way, which is this. Okay. What this is it says for every item in, countries list. There we go. Got to get the names right. For every item in countries list, set up a temporary variable called next country. It's a little bit like when we pass a variable into a function, same idea, but it's sort of just within this little squiggly brackets area here. For every entry in countries list, have this temporary variable called next country, which is that particular entry. And then when you get to the end of this, go back to the top with the next one. So it'll start with this blank one that's got nothing in it, which is not that useful. Do everything in it, and then get our weird semi-Azerbaijan and do that, and then come back. And then next country will be Afghanistan. It'll do its stuff, come back. Next country will then be Albania. It'll do its thing and come back. And next country will be Algeria, et cetera, all the way down to Zimbabwe. Okay. So to see how that works, we can just do console log next country. Okay. And let's get rid of this big mega list here and just do countries log. And you can see here, scripts 14 outputted 224 odd times, once for each country. Okay, and it showed the thing there. Now you notice each of these has a name and a bunch of stats. Okay, so maybe we want to see if we can just get one of these elements out of here by itself. So how about called country? So remember, it's an object. You can access items in an object by using the dot. So next country is any number of these, and for each one, we're then going to output just this part, which is the name of the country. Let's see what happens here. Reload. Okay, here is our big list of all the countries. Dominican Republic, Gibraltar, Mayotte. I don't even know where Mayotte is. Anyway, Namibia, all the way down to Zimbabwe. Okay. There's our list. There's our output. Now, what we might want to do is maybe get a bit fancier, and let's get ourselves an output string. So we can basically, what I like to do is build a string and then do things with it. So we'll talk about that why in a minute. Next entry equals now I'm trying to remember the name. I think it's total recovered. Let's see. Okay, so we've made ourselves a string, and now we've got ourselves, so that we've built that together with a bunch of quotes and some pluses. So we have a dash, so for each entry, like it's a bullet list, country, plus, and then a colon, and then the total recovered. So we're going to have a little listing of the countries with the total number of people recovered. And then we're going to output that for each one. So let's see what happens here. Okay, so here's some really useful data. United Kingdom, 150. United Arab Emirates, 52. Sweden, 16. Okay, Republic of Korea, 4,144. So we've got some numbers here. This is awesome. Okay, and we've built this separately, put it into a variable, and then ran it on the next line. I like to do that because I like to have each line do kind of one thing. So assembling a variable, assembling a string, it's not too difficult, but there's a bunch of steps. You're dealing with different data elements, you're assembling them, you've got all these pluses you've got to keep track of and everything. And then console log is the bit that's writing it out. So I like to do them separately because I like only at one point, you're only doing one thing per line really. Here we're assembling the string, here we're displaying it. Two separate things. This becomes a lot more useful when you start doing more elaborate things, and we'll get to that soon. But there you go, you can see that there. So that's writing results. And now that we have this, why don't we see if we can actually output this to our page? Okay, so let's put it up into the by country area here. So that's here. So just like we did with jQuery before, we do by country. And then HTML, next entry. Okay, so let's save that and reload and see what happens. So it outputs it here, but then it just says country data in here. Although, did you notice it flicker briefly? Okay, and that's because we went through the loop and set it all up and added it to the thing and put it in here, but then reset everything by writing country data in here in the last line here afterwards. So let's comment that out. This is a common thing one does when programming is you'll get back to this and then we'll need this later when we get to it. But right now we don't need it. So we're just going to put a comment in at the beginning so it ignores this line. And then when we're ready to do this again later, we'll uncomment it. Okay, that means this goes away, so it's not going to clobber what we had. So let's try that again. Okay, it flickered and then it finishes with Zimbabwe 0. Okay, that's because we're replacing the entire contents each time with what's in our next entry. Now we can do various things here. For example, instead of HTML, there's an append that actually just adds it to whatever's already there. Okay, that's kind of neat. That gives us everything. That's kind of cool. But it's a little messy and we're sort of appending rather than replacing. What I like to do, and everyone's got a slightly different taste in this, and maybe it's just my history, I like to build up a big string and then just do a replacement of everything in bulk. Okay, so what that does, and let's maybe get rid of this console log. Now that we're outputting things directly, I don't think we need it so much. Here, we can make a mega string before, we can set it up before we start our loop, and then finish it afterwards. Okay, so, and hey, let's call it countries entry, because that's what we're going to be using down here. So let's go up here, copy paste that, and start it with just blank for now. Okay, and then var countries entry, now this is kind of fun, equals countries entry plus next entry. Okay, so what that does is it starts out as blank, comes through here, builds a thing, so United Kingdom 150, whatever, and then it adds it to what's already in countries entry. So it's taking what's already there, which could be blank or it could be a bunch of things already. It equals itself plus the new stuff. So the old stuff plus the new stuff, and that puts the combined version back in here. Okay, and then once we're done, all we need to do is take countries entry and stick it in our by country. Okay, let's see what happens here. Okay, not bad. There we go. We've got our stuff and it's filling in a bit more. Okay, let's maybe get rid of the console for now because we're now showing things on the screen and I think we need a bit more space anyway. Now this is kind of a little ugly, unfortunately. It's not giving us line breaks or anything, so it'd be kind of nice to have these broken out. So maybe we could do some, for example, P, because that's a tag we've already worked with. So we can put tags right into this punch through HTML that we're collecting. Okay, there we are. Now they're all in a line. So you can put HTML directly in this text and it'll pass it right through and show it on the screen. That is handy. Okay, so you can see everything there. But this uses up a lot of space and it sort of isn't very useful. So let's use another set of tags. It's what's called an unordered list. Okay, now an unordered list, and we'll just show you what this looks like here in the top. We'll do some dummy content and we'll fill it in later. This uses a UL tag. This says it's an unordered list, which means it's bullet points. And then that wraps around another set of tags that are wrapped up in li items. Okay, and if we reload our page, you can see here first, second, third, they're bulleted. Okay, and it does the bullets and the indents all automatically for you. There's ways of specifying the kind of bullet and all sorts of different things. If you want, you can even do an ordered list instead, which will automatically number them for you, which is kind of handy. Okay, however, let's stick with an unordered list. And instead of having it separately out here directly in the HTML, let's put it down in here for each of our entries. So the start here will now say, okay, it'll start with an unordered list tag. And at the bottom here, it will now add unordered list at the end. And each of these items here can have li. Let's see what that does. Okay, that's pretty cool. Now we have a bulleted list of all of our countries with their counts. Okay, pretty epic. Let's get rid of this here. We don't need that anymore. And there we go. That's a pretty good start. Now there's a bunch of extra things we should try to figure out while we're here, but pretty good start. We've got our countries with names and things, and it's showing on the page after getting them off the internet. So now this is a list of all the recoveries. It's pretty handy. Actually, while we're here, let's do another thing. Let's sum all of these up, okay? So we can do that right in here if we want while we're building up our list, or we could do it in a separate loop. Everyone's got different opinions on this, but let's do, right, results, that's fine. Let's maybe do in here, because it's global count, let's reorganize this. So what I like to do is have things set up and handled sort of in their own cluster, and then we can do other things down here with our global count data. Okay, now we can do while we're in the loop, but I like to do separate loops for separate things. It's not going to cost us much extra processing power. These things are so fast nowadays, it doesn't really matter. And this helps us stay clear. So we can do sort of the same idea here, but instead of building up a string, we're just going to add a bunch of numbers together. So we can go var total recoveries equals 0. That's our starting state. And same kind of thing here. We can say total recoveries equals total recoveries plus next country total recovered. And that will be every time it goes through. So first one's 0, second one's 0, next one's 2. So total recoveries is now 2. Then we hit Albania, which has 17, which means it's 2 plus 17 gives us 19. Then we get Algeria, which is 29. So it's 29. It's 19 plus 29, which is 30, 48, 38. Anyway, whatever. We'll get the computer to do the math for us, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. And then that all goes into total recoveries, which means we can now say okay. And now that'll show that in there. So let's see what happens here. Total recoveries, 141,049. 140,000 people and more have recovered from this worldwide. Okay? So that's how you can sort of put some information from our feed onto the page, swapping content in as we need to. Okay? Pretty cool, huh? Now, we're going to start doing some better layout and do some filtering and things like that. We'll get to that shortly. Maybe some statistics and rates and things. That's going to happen in the next episode. But before we go on, we always have to remember to put everything into version control. Notice we only messed with the scripts file, yet we've got a ton more things going on the page. So that's pretty cool. So we add that and we say displaying country info on page, and check it out, and we are done. And stay tuned for next time when we start getting fancier with how this looks and acts. Okay, thanks.